Today, we talk about the UFC middleweight king himself, the last Stylebender, Israel Adesanya. What people love about Israel is his graceful swagger, rhetoric, and his confidence. He gets in his opponent's face and builds up the hype for his fights. Like very few before him, Israel backs up his talk with spectacular performances in the cage against high-level competition. He has found ways to read his opponent's movement and reactions, uses eloquent footwork, precise timing, and crisp punches to seal knockout victories time and time again. In this video, we wanted to recap Israel Adesanya's most impressive knockout victories to date. Before we get into it, please remember to smash that like button if you like the video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know whenever we have a new video coming out. Now, on to our list. Number 1. Israel vs. Stuart Dare at Hex Fighting Series 12. Izzy fought Stuart Dare in Melbourne, Australia for the Hex Series Middleweight Championship in November of 2017. Israel was a 10-0 as professional MMA fighter coming into this fight. He was coming off a knockout win over former UFC standout Melvin Guillard. Stuart Dare was a veteran MMA fighter looking to take out the young gun. Israel would slowly press forward, allowing Stuart to throw strikes at him. Israel would make reads on Stuart's movements, strikes, and reactions before he began to slowly pick Stuart apart with straight punches and kicks to the legs. As leg and body kicks took their toll, Stuart began to lower his hands as an effort to defend against the kicks. This gave Izzy the opportunity to fake a low kick and go high to the head. The head kick landed square on the chin and knocked Stuart out cold. It was a vicious knockout, and Israel was victorious again. This would be his last fight on the regional scene before signing with the UFC. Number 2. Israel vs. Rob Wilkinson at UFC 221. Izzy made his UFC debut against Rob Wilkinson in February of 2018 in Perth, Australia. This was a great test for Israel Adesanya because Rob came into this fight to grapple while Israel clearly came to strike. Rob spent most of the fight trying to take Israel down and submit him, but Israel had superb takedown defense and was able to avoid the ground game completely. As the fight progressed, Israel made his reads on Rob's movement, and Rob began to tire due to the repeated failed takedown attempts. Once Rob could no longer get close for takedown attempts, Izzy slowly began to pick him apart. Rob got his nose busted in the second round, took some hard shots, and was barely fighting back. Enough for the referee to award Israel the technical knockout victory in the second round. Adesanya passed his first test in the UFC. From this point forward, Israel would face much higher competition and move up the middleweight division. Number 3. Israel vs. Derek Brunson at UFC 230. Izzy made his 4th UFC appearance against top-ranked opponent and veteran Derek Brunson at UFC 230 in New York City in November of 2018. Adesanya was only 4 months removed from a unanimous decision win against another then-ranked fighter in Brad Tavares. This fight against Derek Brunson was a test to see if Izzy belonged at the top of the division with the other title contenders. Pass the test is exactly what Israel did. In fact, he did so with flying colors. Derek Brunson is a grappler and used his takedown skills to try and drag Adesanya to the ground in order to submit him or beat him up with ground and pound. This strategy proved to be largely unsuccessful. In fact, Derek ate hard strikes for his troubles. This is because of Israel's takedown defense, much like the fights we explained earlier. His takedown defense improved rapidly in the months leading up to this contest. It was on full display during the fight. Israel had also set up a few counter strikes to catch Brunson while he came in for takedown attempts. The fight-ending sequence came when Derek again dove for a takedown and got kneed in the face while coming in. This knee badly hurt Derek and he went crumbling to the canvas. A series of follow-up punches led to the knockout win for Israel, and thus secured his spot as a top middleweight in the division where he belonged. Number 4. Israel vs. Robert Whittaker at UFC 243. Izzy and Robert Whittaker were set to fight for the undisputed UFC Middleweight Championship at UFC 243 in Melbourne in October of 2019. Israel was coming off spectacular decision wins against former middleweight champion and pound-for-pound great Anderson Silva and fellow middleweight contender Kelvin Gastelum. Robert Whittaker being the then reigning UFC middleweight champion, this fight was to establish the best middleweight in the world in what was sure to be an exciting contest. The fight delivered in that regard, because Robert Whittaker came forward with flurries of punches for most of the fight. trying to put pressure on Adesanya. In the beginning of the first round, Adesanya was content to retreat, use quick counters, and make his reads on the opponent. Toward the end of the first round, Israel began to turn the tables and counter with hard punches and kicks while Robert is coming in to land strikes of his own. Israel used his movement to make Robert miss his targets, and Izzy countered with hard punches. This continued to the end of the first round, where Izzy dropped Robert at the final bell. Robert would make it to the second round, only for more of the same to continue. Robert was caught with another counterpunch that sent him down to the canvas for the second and final time. Adesanya delivered the finishing blows, ending the fight and securing the undisputed UFC middleweight title in the process. Number 5. Israel vs. Paulo Costa at UFC 253. This one is fresh off the press. Izzy is the reigning UFC middleweight champion, coming off a successful title defense and unanimous decision win against Yoel Romero. His fame, recognition, popularity, and bank account rising to become one of the biggest stars in the UFC. Paulo Costa is a fellow middleweight contender and power volume striker. He was coming off a split decision win over Yoel Romero at UFC 241 in August of 2019. There was a lot of hype and trash talking from both fighters coming into this championship contest. Both men took the insults quite personally.
Israel Adesanya.
You even don't know the name of the guy.
I don't know who is him. I don't know.
I saw him backstage. He wouldn't make eye contact with me. He just kept on staring at the wall, about 5 feet away from me. To say like, oh, I don't know who this guy is. Who this Israel guy?
I remember I saw you walking there, but I thought this guy worked on Cirque Soleil because he's so skinny. He's not look like a fighter.
The guy, he sucks at English. He's a buffoonus ignoramus. So I thought he was gonna like shit in his hand and throw it at the cage. He's too emotional, and already I know how that fight's gonna go. I'm gonna sleep that guy.
You need to come to fight, not stand there and wait for guy, like you did.
Who stood there and wait? I didn't stand there and wait. He stood there and wait. I came to fight. I actually came.
He looks like the perfect antagonist. He's big, bulky, juice to the fucking gills. So when I come in there with some Bruce Lee shit, come on. It's like, oh my God, wow. You beat that big muscle boy. Oh.
I will be waiting for Adesanya, the skinny claw Adesanya.
He's dumb and he walks forward and he throws shots. That's what makes it really exciting, and that's what I'm looking forward to. Eventually, when this gas tank runs out after the third round, put your away. This ESPN.
Like,
Make him
this is
a god.
His very excuse is run away. He's avoid the fight. He's very good on that. The only thing more disturbing than his hair was his fight against Romero.
Thus, this added a lot of hype to the fight. The fight did not exactly live up to the billing in that regard, but the result was still entertaining nonetheless. Costa seemed very hesitant to attack. Rightfully so, given what happened to Robert Whittaker and Derek Brunson as we mentioned earlier. Coming forward on Israel is not a great idea, so instead Costa did not do much of anything at all. This allowed Israel to pressure Costa and land hard kicks to the legs. Once again, Israel's movement and crisp striking was on full display as he picked Costa apart, eventually leading to the second round knockout win, and his second successful UFC middleweight title defense for Israel Adesanya. Okay guys, what did you think of this list? Are there any great knockouts from Israel that you think I left off the list? Who do you think Israel should fight next? Let me know in the comments. Please remember to smash that like button if you enjoyed the video. It helps me out a ton. Also, subscribe and hit the notification bell to get informed every time we drop a new video. I appreciate you guys watching until the end, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.